our efforts to deal with the challenges of our day, to make our own humble contribution in the national effort in the remaking of our country out of the ashes of apartheid's devastating past. We have assembled here to celebrate and remember a life of a man of cloth, a leader, a patriot, a father, a fighter, a negotiator, an internationalist, and an organizer. Indeed, it is the combination of all these qualities, a man described by President Cyril Ramaphosa as I quote, Desmond Tutu was a patriot without equal, a leader of principle and pragmatism who gave meaning to the biblical insight that faith without works is dead. Men and women of rare qualities are few and hard to find, and they are very few and hard to come by. And when they depart, their deeds remain with us forever. A commander of reconstruction and development of the soul, a warrior for peace and reconciliation, a builder par excellence. Because there are two people in this world. They are builders and they are destroyers. The Arch took a very conscious decision that he is going to be the builder. In 1931, South Africa was declared a self-governing British dominion with the passage of the Statute of Westminster. At this juncture, whilst the Europeans continued to tighten their grip on South Africa, Desmond Tutu, a patriot who coined the term Rainbow Nation, personifying the relative peaceful transition of South African society from apartheid to democracy. Born in Klerksdorp, South Africa, on that very same year. At high school, Tutu came under the influence of Father Trevor Huddleston. Later biographer Shirley Boulay suggested that Huddleston was, and I quote, the greatest single influence in Tutu's life. Tutu went on to Pretoria Bantu Normal College to study education and served as treasurer of the Student Representative Council, as well as helping organize the Literacy and Dramatic Society and chairing the Cultural and Debating Society. He began teaching English at Madibane High School in 1954, then moved to Krugersdorp High School the following year, where he taught English and history. However, the apartheid government introduced the Bantu education to reinforce its apartheid system of racial segregation and white control, prompting Tutu to leave teaching. The Arch's anti-apartheid work began with this, and he made sure to use his most accessible platform, the church, to carry it out. In this regard, Tutu chose to become an Anglican priest and subsequently occupied several senior positions in the church, being the first black person to do so. He made extensive use of his high-ranking positions to address the country's socio-political and economic difficulties, as well as decry the apartheid regime's brutal nature, openly describing the apartheid system as evil and un-Christian. As I've indicated above, Archbishop Desmond Tutu started the protest journey when the apartheid government introduced Bantu education in the 1950s. As a teacher, he felt that he cannot feed children with poison through Bantu education. And he was very clear about that. The Arch was a vocal supporter and the center of the mass campaign against apartheid. Efforts such as Black Consciousness Movement, stating during Steve Biko's funeral that the Black Consciousness Movement was, and I quote, a movement by which God, through Steve, strove to awaken in the black person a feeling of his innate value and worth as a child of God, close quote. He was in the thick of mass campaign throughout the roaring 70s, 80s, and 90s, and he stood for freedom and democracy alongside other leaders of the liberation movement. He was not neutral. He chose the side. And he chose the side of the oppressed against the oppressor. In 1978, he was elected to serve as the General Secretary of the South African Council of Churches, a post he held until 1985. During his tenure in the SACC, the Council established scholarships for black youths and organized self-help projects in black townships. Lawyers were hired to represent black defendants on trial under security laws, and support was provided for the families of those detained without trial. As General Secretary of the SACC and later Anglican Archbishop of Cape Town, Archbishop Tutu led the church to the forefront of black South Africans' decades-long struggle for freedom. His voice was a powerful force for nonviolence in the anti-apartheid movement, earning him a Nobel Peace Prize in 1984. However, the wicked forces of South Africa's apartheid government and mainstream media ignored or criticized the prize, whilst many celebrated it as proof of apartheid's coming to demise. As bishop, he spoke out the establishment of tribal homelands and used the council as a platform to urge foreign investors to pull out of South Africa. Archbishop Tutu's opposition to apartheid government and the backing of the worldwide economic boycott of South Africa earned him the status of the enemy of the state. In response to this, the apartheid state revoked his passport to prevent him from mobilizing foreign support for the liberation struggle. The Arch enraged many of the South African press and white minority, particularly conservative whites who supported apartheid, leading to the pro-government media launching a smear campaign against him. However, in the eyes of the majority, as is the case today, Archbishop Desmond Tutu was an icon of the liberation struggle. In 1988, during one of his many public addresses, he called upon the apartheid state, as he said, and I quote, "You have already lost." And he was telling people who were still in power,